Hi, it's Maggie with Minds on Mushrooms. I'm so thrilled to introduce to you our newest podcast sponsor, Utopia Borealis, who's inviting you to their 1-year anniversary summer solstice celebration. Utopia Borealis is redefining soda, meticulously handcrafted and small batched. This hydrating THC soda contains only 3 clean ingredients and is packed with electrolytes and antioxidants. You are invited in celebration of their 1-year anniversary. Utopia Borealis is hosting a summer solstice party at their incredible venue located in Esco, Minnesota. Join us Friday, June 21st as you sip on complimentary NA beverages brought to you by Dry Wit and Underwood Coffee and enjoy epic bites by the one and only Northern Waters Smokehouse. And Canadian renowned DJ Toronto Hustle will be providing the beats. For tickets and more information, head to utopiaborealis.com. Thank you. Hello. Welcome to Minds on Mushrooms, where we're unveiling the magic behind psychedelics for mental health and addiction. I'm your host, Maggie Kirkwood. Thanks for joining today. We have Kris Kufner coming all the way from Canada. You're zooming in, right?
That's right. Toronto.
Amazing. So thrilled to have you here today. I think if we can just kind of start, I love to hear your journey and how you've found yourself in this magical, amazing world.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Maggie. So I started, I guess, my journey into psychedelics happened about 4 to 5 years ago. I had been experiencing quite an intense health journey with autoimmune disease, which started in my I started becoming symptomatic in my early 30s. Wasn't formally diagnosed until I was 39. And I had struggled with really intense symptoms, cognitive issues, which were the worst. Memory loss, cold intolerance, sleep issues, digestive issues, just you name it. I probably had at the time over a dozen symptoms, body pain. And I was really struggling to the point where I officially couldn't work anymore. I couldn't function. I had such severe chronic fatigue. I had trouble putting my words together. And it was just getting to the point where I had to take a step back from working and really understand the root cause of why this was happening. So doctors weren't really very accommodating, to be honest. It was a struggle to get any answers. And I felt like I was just being gaslit by the medical community. So I'd always been really interested in holistic modalities.
Right.
And so pretty early on, which we weren't talking about, it wasn't in the zeitgeist. Nobody was talking about functional medicine or holistic health in this way. And I was lucky enough to come in contact with a few people, and they really started helping me on this path to understanding the root cause of the autoimmune diseases. My mother had these, and I'd sort of modeled what had happened to her almost to a T in a different period of my life. So I was trying to understand why this was all happening, and I wasn't really getting the answers. I did all the things that people do. You change your diet, you look at your nutrition, and you look at all of those areas that we all expect to look at the beginning of something like this. And it just still wasn't moving the needle for me.
Okay. So was it like escalating? Like obviously you had to take time from work or to figure this out.
Yeah, healing became my full-time job, to be quite honest. And it wasn't until I met a woman, I was trying to so at the time I was transitioning out of a career, and I was experiencing some professional burnout, to be quite honest. And I knew I wanted to shift. I just didn't know what that looked like. I'm a classically trained dancer. So I thought
Oh, wow.
eventually in life, I would somewhere along the line, I would go back to maybe teaching or choreographing or doing something in the world of dance and movement. I became a yoga instructor, so I thought I
Mm,
will sort of fall back on these modalities, and this will be my new sort of pivot into uh, movement and teaching and that kind of thing.
gotcha. So you found the right people, I guess. Was it they were helping you to understand your ongoing symptoms? Was that through the use of psychedelics, or is this still trying to figure out what's going on with you and putting you on a path that might make you feel better?
Yeah, it was yeah, definitely the latter. It was trying to understand why I had such intense symptoms and not being formally diagnosed with anything at the moment at that time.
Hmm.
And then it was a woman who I had met in a group who had introduced the idea of trauma to me and its link to
Mm,
chronic illness. I dove pretty deep into that world, and then that sort of connected me to nervous system healing and health. Um, and then that sort of opened me up to the world of psychedelics.
okay.
So it was kind of a progression, and I would say the the turning point was when something terrible had happened to a sibling of mine, and she went to go do. She had done other ceremonies and had used psychedelics for in the past to kind of. She was curious and wanted to explore.
Hmm.
Um, And so she had done iboga and some other psychedelics, and we still never really talked about it much, and it wasn't sort of something that I was just like, "Oh, maybe I should try that to
Hmm.
help me with my health and the root cause of this and the connection of trauma." And
So sorry. Did you say that something terrible had happened to your sibling before their exploration with plant medicine?
actually after,
Oh, sorry. Okay.
yeah, so she had already done some exploring in psychedelics and something we spoke about. It wasn't something that I wasn't aware of. We had
Mm.
spoken about this probably since we were in our 20s.
Oh, okay.
So we kind of were like always thinking this that we would do a ceremony eventually, but it wasn't at the forefront of our thinking of really at all. So it wasn't until that happened where she went and did a ceremony, and that experience had sort of shifted her so much that she wanted me to
Mm.
experience the same. And it's almost like I came through in her journey, and it was something that she said immediately after it she had finished the journey. She had called me and said, you have to go do this. Like, I'm going to set you up with the same people, and you're going to
Mm.
go do it. You're not going to really think about it. You're just going to go
Yeah.
do it. Which is not how, this kind of stuff works really. But I was really curious.
Hmm.
And at that point, I would say I was a bit desperate to try anything that could potentially make me feel better physically.
Gotcha. And was this a psilocybin journey or?
So my first psychedelic assisted psychedelic therapy
Mhm.
was 2CB, which is um, a psychedelic that is sort of comes from the MDMA family.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Interesting. Um, so her or their experience was just so profound and shifting so then you had to check it out and let's hear about that. I'm very anxious to hear about how and when you were starting to feel better and what that looked like.
Yeah. So at that point, we were, I guess, a few months into COVID
Mm.
and lockdowns, and we were all obviously really stressed. And I really took that time actually to start looking at some other avenues and how I could start to feel physically better. And so when my sister had done that, I thought, this is perfect timing. I'm not going to look too much into it. I just want to start the process, and what do I have to do? So I did that. I worked with two therapists, and they had a process and how they saw people. And so I did an intake and had a set and setting, just as we do, ceremony. And then after that, after my ceremony day,
Mhm.
I would say immediately after, within the next 24 to 48 hours, I had felt such a profound feeling of not having so much heaviness anymore.
So
And
like a big release of sorts?
yeah, it was just as if someone had turned the lights brighter.
Mm.
It's like I could see better. I had this immense amount of gratitude. I physically wasn't feeling the depths of that fatigue, and anybody who suffers from chronic fatigue will tell you this. It's just like it holds you like just a giant weight, and that
Mm.
felt I couldn't quite believe it, to be honest.
Wow.
And that propelled a whole other kind of avenue for me in my work and in healing my immune system.
Hmm. That is just so fascinating. I mean, I my experience with my kind of first mystical experience, um, similar. It was just so profound and this overwhelming feeling that everything's going to be okay. And I felt, like you said, that the lights were taken off the dimmer, just brighter and lighter. And um, in a matter of hours, that I felt for me was almost like this halo effect for weeks. So I gives me the chills every time I hear someone has such a changing, healing, shifting experience. So then that just propelled you to kind of probably want to learn more, know more, explore more.
Absolutely. I was just so fascinated by the fact that I had done all of these other things, and, you know, and I was pretty extensive in my healing. I had tried every detox, every
Hmm.
protocol. I'd spent thousands by that point, and supplements and practitioners and doctors and functional medicine, you name it, I tried all of it.
Mm.
And I I still love all of these different avenues for healing, but I wasn't getting quite to the root. And
Mm.
it felt like there's something in this that propelled my energy forward in a
Mhm.
way that nothing else had. And that was really interesting to me. And I wanted to understand why and
Hmm.
how. Yeah.
All right. So where did you go from there?
Yeah. So from there, uh, it was kind of like I said, it was COVID. So
Hmm.
at the time, it was really hard to see anybody in person. And so the therapists that I had worked with and who had done my ceremony for me, they were kind of looking for someone to come in and teach them yoga. And in exchange, everyone was kind of bartering at the time if they were comfortable in seeing people in person. And so I had gone teach them yoga, and she would do some body work for me. And it just kind of came up in conversation. I think you would be really great at facilitating ceremony with
Mm.
me. Is this something you would like to learn? And I thought, oh, that's so wild, because I had, started doing all this research and it wasn't something that I was like, oh, this is what I want to do
Mhm.
for work, and this is how I want to help people. It wasn't anywhere in my
Wheelhouse or
no,
yeah.
in my, awareness that this
Yeah.
was something that I would potentially be able to do. And so, what I started doing was sitting in ceremony with them. So I would come in as an assistant to them,
Mhm.
and and basically just watch and help in any way that I could. And something really fascinating happened in those times is that I could feel energetically the medicine without even having taken any.
Oh, okay.
And that started to get stronger and stronger as I sat and held space for people in
Mm.
ceremony. And I thought, what is happening? And how I was just so mesmerized and blown away by the power of these plant medicines and what they could do for people and how you could connect even on an energetic level with them. And
Wow.
so that's kind of how I started um, sitting and being in ceremony and holding space. And then they ended up having a practitioner training, um, which happened, and I was invited. It was open for usually for doctors, therapists, community. Um, what's the word I'm looking for?
Advocate? Oh,
Counselors,
okay. Yeah.
advocates, yes, counselors. And so they had invited me in because I had already been sitting for hours with them and assisting. So I was fortunate enough to be invited into a small group
Mm.
and get the official training.
That's amazing. And another story of what I like to call mushroom alignment, or like,
Yeah,
so, people, the most wonderful opportunities are just kind of appearing out of nowhere and connecting you to your path, essentially, right? Um, so you're just learning more, and did was it shortly after that you were able to start facilitating?
it was actually. I started quite quickly after I really, really wanted to get into the work, and I wanted to offer this kind of support for people. So it wasn't until I started sitting in group. So the same woman who had mentored me through this training was starting to hold female like groups where
Mm,
females would get together, and every time there would be a sort of a different psychedelic that we would try and we would sit in ceremony with. And this was a really wonderful opportunity for me to sort of experiment in a way, but also sit and see how other people react on medicine and my role in how I could support them.
mm,
And something really beautiful, which was really unexpected for me, happened in that, again, the energetic component of me sort of feeling this openness and out of nowhere kind of feeling that I could support people in this way.
mhm,
It was like a knowing. It's almost like I could channel some sort of energy through being on the medicine or not being on the medicine, but sitting in ceremony and holding space for people. And that really was kind of it was a little freaky, I have to say, at the beginning because
mhm.
I wasn't anticipating anything like this. So it was beautiful. And it's such an honor for me to be able to do that and hold space for people and on their journeys.
Right. Um, I'm curious, can we talk about some of the different plant medicines that you were able to experiment with and learn about how other people are taking them and processing them and helping to guide them?
Sure, yes. So I would say MDMA,
Hmm.
psilocybin, LSD, and 2CB would be the ones that I have experienced myself and I help others with. So for me, I MDMA and psilocybin are the two that I prefer because I
Okay.
just see the effects are quite impactful and
Yeah.
profound for people.
I have some questions if you don't mind.
Mhm.
I'm mostly familiar with psilocybin. When it comes to MDMA, do you feel I'd like you to just talk about that as to why, from what I see, it's such an heart opener, and this is what the vets with PTSD are hopefully going to be able to have access to. But I'd like to hear from you and hear you talk about it and how you've seen transformation or changes. Kind of, is it specifically with MDMA or do you use MDMA and psilocybin together? Um,
Yes.
okay.
So mostly they have been used together in ceremony, and that's sort of a way to help the person manage the more, what's the word I can use for this?
Maybe like anxiety about the medicine coming on.
Because
Kind of.
usually mushrooms can come on quite strong,
Okay.
and psilocybin, so it almost sort of brings that level of ease and, like you said, heart opening and a loving sort of relaxation into the journey.
Mm,
It really can help that part of the brain and body ease into the sort of offset of the
sure.
psilocybin. Yeah, so
So is it just kind of like a smaller amount, and that's really just to kind of put the person at ease for the onset of the mushrooms? I mean, are we allowed to talk about I'm just interested in like the amount, but you guys are using milliliters or I probably I'm just kidding.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's they're small amounts.
Okay.
They're, yeah,
Yeah.
75 to 100, the same as a microdose for
Gotcha.
psilocybin. Yeah.
Okay. Um, all right. And then I wanted to touch the one that I am not familiar with, which was your original journey. Is it CB2?
2CB.
2CB. Okay. What
Yeah.
it
So
and
that is
that
also a synthetic psychedelic.
oh, okay.
In Yeah, so that comes from, originally, I guess that's the same family as the
MDMA.
MDMA.
Okay.
Uh, I would say that it's quite psychedelic as far as the visual
Mm,
component of it.
okay.
So the way it happens for me and the way I've seen it for other people, it's usually more auditory, and it's not as, I would say, visual in that you're seeing patterns and
Mhm.
shapes and colors as you can in with psychedelic or with psilocybin, but it is quite psychedelic in that way. It's something I don't know that I have the words to explain fully,
Mm,
but it really connected me to something higher, a higher power that I know the source, the universe, whatever you want to
mm,
call it,
mhm,
in a way that I had never connected before. And that was something that was just profound for me. I mean, just not to sound a little bit out there, but at one point I really felt a death and rebirth. I could even smell the dirt, and I could hear angels singing,
mm.
and that kind of experience wasn't something that I had ever
Sure.
had access to before.
Mm. I can relate, and I always feel so I do feel silly kind of opening up and talking about the mystical, magical, parts that I felt like I was connecting and, sharing my mind with my grandfather and my grandmas too, and it is I was with the group last night kinda talking about this, and it's, interesting to hear other perspectives. I think that someone I was speaking to last night was saying we have the ability to manifest anything, I guess, but perhaps some of these instances or connections or higher power, it's just so fascinating, ineffable, and who knows. But it sure feels darn good. And for me, it felt one of the most significant feelings of my lifetime, and, that's what got me talking, I still can't stop. Um, so I wanted to also kind of back up too, coming from Toronto, do you mind sharing kind of where you guys are? I was watching something, are there mushroom psilocybin shops, maybe not in Toronto, but other places? Or I'd like to hear just a little bit about the legalities in Canada, specifically Toronto or wherever, if you don't mind.
Right. Yeah. So right now, cannabis is legal
Okay.
for sale and consumption in Canada. And we do have psilocybin stores.
Ooh.
They're not 100% legal. So it's kind of what happened in the cannabis realm before it became 100% legal. There were shops
Hmm.
that technically shouldn't have been there, but they
Okay.
were. So they were being shut down by the government. And we are experiencing that now with some of
Mm.
the mushroom shops where they're up one day, down the next.
Oh, gosh.
Um, and I think that's because it's the next classification to become legalized.
Mm.
And because our government controls our cannabis shops, like our
Hmm.
liquor, so, or the consumption. So um, I think that's just the reason why right now
Okay.
it's in this phase of it's not 100% able, like, legal to
Yeah.
sell and consume yet,
Mhm.
but it's there. It's like the next one.
Gotcha. Um, and so going back to kind of like, having, or let's get back to talking about the medicine and maybe, I'd like to hear, you know, if you're able to share vaguely any profound, stories with people you've worked with, or just kind of continuing the conversation around the changes and transformations that you've been able to be a part of.
Yes, I mean, so I've been fortunate to have clients ages 20 to their 60s,
Hmm.
males and females. And I think sort of the theme with all of these clients was this profound ability to understand how this could be used for them in a way to heal whatever it was that they were there to look at or potentially heal from.
Okay.
And, we had a young boy with autism and who had severe early developmental trauma. We've had a woman with depression, a young girl around 35 who has had depression, clinical depression since she was 18. She came off of her SSRIs
Wow.
and was able, I worked with her pre
Hmm.
journey to get her prepped for doing that. And she's been able to stay off of her medication and integrate really well. Also, we do tend to have our clients tend to have some sort of trauma that may have gone unresolved, whether it was early or throughout their lifetime. And that
Hmm.
tends to, we see a lot of that sort of surface. We can't tell you what it's going to be, or we can't tell them what it's going to be and what's going to happen. But we've seen some very, very profound shifts. And I think the link to all of them is this greater sense of gratitude
Hmm.
and hope of this is something that I can overcome and this is something that I can heal within myself. And it's not something that we can say, this is going to happen and you're healed.
Yeah.
um, but I think that this psychedelic experience can open that window of tolerance for people to be able to go in and do the deep work and be able to do that work
Hmm.
a little easier. Not that it is easier or easy, but that it kind of gives them a bit of hope when they're diving into that.
Do you feel, are there instances of people when they're having a larger psilocybin or any journey where they've had revelations, or like something has been suppressed so deep and then it's brought to light? Does that
Oh,
all the
yes.
time?
Not
Or
quite often,
oh,
honestly,
okay.
it really does. We have people go back into their inner child, and
Mm.
we have I wouldn't say that people go back into the trauma necessarily or that something comes up, but people will channel with, you know, potentially like a grandparent energy will come through,
Mm,
or I mean, it's quite fascinating. It's different for everyone. It looks different for everyone. We
mhm.
have people who talk through the whole thing.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
we have people who don't say a word through their experience. There can be an emotional release. There can be laughing. It's quite uh, wild how different everybody's experience is, but the same, if that makes sense. It's like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, I do know just in talking all the time about this, I think a lot of people they do worry that, "Oh, is there something hidden, and do I even wanna know?" And I think the way that I've been trying to talk about it is I mean, maybe there is, but I think I kinda was hearing you say it. For me, it's like the medicine has a gentle way to bring acknowledgement around a trauma or an issue and help you cope in a way that you'll be able to handle? I don't know, but that's
absolutely.
I feel like the medicine won't give you anything more than you're not able to handle.
Absolutely. And I think
Okay.
too with intention, which we always say with the
Yeah.
medicine, intention is everything.
Mhm.
But even with that, you may go into an experience or a journey with this, I want to, or my intention is X, Y, and Z. And then you get into the journey and
It's
it may be in that direction, but it will
yeah.
give you something. So we always tell people that it's the medicine gives you exactly what you need, maybe not necessarily what you want.
Yes. That is so comforting to hear because yeah. Um And then I just kind of wanted to backtrack. I'm particularly interested. I think you said you had a young boy with autism with some severe childhood trauma, correct?
Mhm.
Can you just, I'm just interested in hearing more about that experience. I'm just curious. Was this helping him to be with social skills or I'll stop talking. I just wanna hear more if you're open to talking about that in the best way you can,
Yeah, so he was, I believe 20, 19 or 20,
Mhm.
and yeah, it was specifically for that,
Oh,
for
okay.
him to be able to sort of not feel so isolated and be able to be more interactive socially and to just be able to emotionally open up a little bit more.
And was he able to?
It was quite fascinating. He was, a big part of his journey was very introspective and very quiet, but he was able to express at the end of it. It was very, very profound. And so it's just such an honor and to watch people kind of work through some of these things and not have any fear or inhibition around sort of allowing it to come up and be felt,
Yeah.
which is, something we all struggle with,
Mhm.
I think. And so that's the part of the psychedelic experience that I really love and I think is really important is the emotional piece where, you can really sort of sit with these emotions as uncomfortable as they may feel. It gives you that ease to be able to do that. And for me, that's a huge part of the healing puzzle.
Mm. You are helping me so much right now. It's just so good to, yeah, just hear you express, because so much of it is so unknown, right? And, if as funny as it sounds, I have girlfriends, we've known each other for decades, and it's that being vulnerable or if you're having medicine and hopes for healing and mental health, even if it is kind of a big uh if you're going to be working with an integration coach or therapist, allowing yourself what do we say, surrender and let it come up and out. But it is I think that's takes balls to be able to walk into a setting knowing you're going to have to do that. And I think
Absolutely.
kind of getting back to the piece where maybe not everyone might want to do that, or it's not for everybody, right? But,
No, and I really do say that doing this work is not for the faint of heart. Like, this
mm,
is really hard work. It is the most important work I think we do in a lifetime, in our lifetime, is to s dive deep into our unknown
right.
and see, all parts of ourselves.
Yes, just so thrilled, again, meeting people. I have the same same thoughts, and, I just love hearing reinforcement behind the passion, and, so let's kinda continue. Do you have a practice, like, together where you're able can we talk about that?
Sure, yes. So I do see clients in this capacity. So we have sort of a protocol that we have our clients go through. I have a partner in this as well. So there's always two people sitting in journey with
Mm,
one client.
okay.
And so, do you want me to tell you how we do our process?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, I'd love to hear about intake. Yeah, from intake to integration, I guess, or,
Yeah.
go
So
ahead.
we do, at first, we do sort of a consult and a call to see if it's the right fit. And I think
Mhm,
that's really important for the client and for the practitioner. So, and also to understand if our clients are on any medications or where they are in their health. So that is kind of something I'd like to talk through in the consult. So we do a
mhm,
free consult and then we move into the intake process. If they feel comfortable and called after that, then they set up a time with us for an intake.
okay,
So we do have some paperwork to fill out online. They fill out a questionnaire. And from there, we schedule the intake on Zoom, which takes anywhere from an hour to 90 minutes. And
okay,
here we want to get a picture of their current state of health. So, what does that look like? Are they on any kind of supplements? What their health regime looks like? How they take care of themselves? Their mental state? Are they in therapy? And any sort of past traumas that we may need to know about. We never ask the client to discuss to divulge any of their past traumas,
okay.
but just give us what they're comfortable in telling us,
Mhm,
and or is it something that they've been working through or that's been affecting their overall health and well-being.
okay.
So we want to get a really good snapshot of where they are today.
Uh,
And we,
oh, sorry. I just wanted to ask if a client is currently taking SSRIs or antidepressants, do do you work with them considering that, or do you work with them if what if their goal is to you said you had that one client who was able to kind of stop taking the SSRIs. Do you say no if people are on certain medications? Just wanted to hear more about that.
yes, I do, absolutely. So there's two things, and that's whatever medications they're on and how long have they been on them,
Mhm.
and they're going to need a doctor supervision to come off of those.
Mm,
So anywhere from, I like to say, 3 months to be safe that all of that medication is out of the system and that they have learned to move through their day to day without it,
okay.
and that they have clinical supervision, medical supervision whilst doing that.
Okay.
So that's the first step.
Yes.
I also want to understand what their mental health looks like.
Mhm.
So if there's something that might be a little bit more, I would say, out of my scope of practice, so any history of schizophrenia, or really severe bipolar.
Mhm.
These are things that, unfortunately, that's not something I would want to get involved with,
Mhm.
just to be and it's not just for me; it's for the client. I wouldn't want to experience any form of psychosis, which can happen
Mhm.
in a ceremony. So we just want to know that everybody is safe.
What yep.
Um,
Understood.
yeah,
And not for everyone.
and
So,
not for everyone,
yeah.
absolutely. And most people coming understand that. we have had to say no to a few people, and that's just because they have been on certain medications for, 20 plus years
Mhm.
and wouldn't really need they're not willing to come off of them. So they just don't understand that it's not safe to mix them.
Sure.
And so that would be the reason why they wouldn't do it, because they just can't come off those medications, and that's understandable. And so
Yeah.
I think everybody needs to know.
Yeah. Um, and then yeah, so intake, how are we figuring out or deciding on dosage?
So after the intake, we kind of get an understanding of what the client is looking for
Mhm.
and what they want to experience. We don't sort of arrange doses unless we have someone who has had a lot of past journey experience and says, I want this particular dose.
Okay.
We dose exactly the same for everyone,
Oh,
no
wow.
matter how old, size, age, doesn't matter. So we have a therapeutic dose that we've found works really, really well for us and our clients. And most of the time, even through our ceremony, we have realized when we ask them for, if they want to do a booster, most people say no, and they're on a really low dose.
Am I
So,
allowed to know what it is, the dose?
sure, yeah, yeah. So we use 3 grams, anywhere from 3 to 3.5 grams,
Okay.
with a potential half-gram booster.
Mm,
And we do that about 4 hours into the ceremony. So a ceremony day starts at about 9. We make a tea and it'll start around 10. And then around 1 ish, 2 o'clock, we ask them if they would like to have a booster to keep the therapeutic window open longer.
okay.
And
And you said
then
half a gram for the booster? Okay.
that's right. Yeah. And so before we go to the ceremony, though, we do have a set and setting call as well.
Mm,
And we spend about an hour on Zoom as well. And we go through intention, we go through medicine, dosing, safety, touch, all of these things that we want to discuss before
mhm,
ceremony. Any questions? We talk about any fears that may come up or words that they would like to hear while they're in ceremony,
mhm.
and any sort of other offerings that we do. So my partner and I are both energy healers, and she does sound therapy,
Mm.
and I do somatic movement with clients, so we can integrate all of that if that's
Wow.
what they like and if that's what they want.
Yeah.
And then from that, we set the ceremony date,
Okay.
and that day is about a 6 to 8 hour day, depending
Mhm.
on the client. We meet just before 10 a.m., and then we're usually finished by around 5 o'clock. And what we do at the end is we try to do a bit of an integration with
Mhm.
them as they're coming out of it. And then 1 week from that day, we do a full integration on Zoom with them, so we can just check in and then see if they're how they're integrating in the first week. We do
Mhm.
keep also, in touch with our clients over text, even over the weekend as they're coming through it. We usually do them on a Friday
Oh, okay.
and have them take a few days off for work, so they're not just jumping right back into work.
Yeah.
And we, communicate with them over the weekend to make sure that they're integrating okay. And another big part of our sort of package is that all of our clients have to be in therapy. And
Mhm.
that's really, really important, because if they're trying to work through something and something might come up, we just feel safer for them and for ourselves is that they have a therapist that understands the work and the medicine and can work with them on an ongoing basis post journey, because integration coaching is one thing,
Mhm.
therapy is a different thing. And so
Yes.
we want to make sure that they have all the support that they need to walk through this integration
Do you
piece.
do you find that the majority of people already have a therapist, or are they having to, like, scramble and get one to be able to enjoy ceremony?
Yeah, most of them do.
Okay.
We have set up our clients. We do have a therapist, a
Mm.
few different therapists that we work with.
Mhm.
That if they're not trained, they do know the work.
Okay. Yeah.
So here in Canada, you can get assisted ketamine therapy
Mm.
from
Yeah.
your psychotherapist. So, and so we do have a bit of a network of people we can call
Well,
to.
that's great.
Yeah, and they refer to us and we refer to them, which is
Wonderful.
wonderful.
Yeah, I think that just your package or your program, the fact that you the energy work and somatic heal I mean, it's like full
It's
full
full package.
spectrum. Yeah, full
Yeah.
package. Um, well, that's so great. So, do you have a name for your practice?
No, it's
Ooh,
not something, it's still sort of
no.
something that
Yeah.
we get referred to. So
Gotcha.
this is all referral based for us. It's not something
Mhm.
we really advertise,
Yeah.
but it, yeah, so it's just, we're both practitioners. And so people come to us
Yeah.
for some of our clients who are already our clients have done
Mhm.
a journey with us and vice versa. So it's been wonderful.
That's so great. Um, I was getting uh just this event that I was at last night. We were talking about um how nice I come from a corporate background. I used to be, well, I still am a creative director, but that's when I went to school for and everything. But we were talking about this idea of kind of creative teams or I guess artists in general, because I feel that, even on the microdosing level, just like the creativity flow is just so enhanced. But I was like, it'd be so great to kind of like get into some of these smaller corporations or just talking about the idea or again having the conversation about you know just profound benefits with psychedelics. But that just got me thinking for some reason. My mind's always going. um, well, that so fascinating, and I love what you're doing, and it's such important work. And I feel that if anyone I love how you yourself were saved essentially um, from or with the medicine. And so I feel like people couldn't be in better hands, um, because it's like it inside out. And so I just am excited for you, and I'm so thankful to just hear everything that you had to say. Yeah, I love just talking to you because you make me feel great and just so
Oh,
knowledgeable.
thank you.
And I'd love to have you back sometime. Just keeping.
Absolutely.
I'd love to hear also to stay on top of just s- you know with Toronto and Canada, and if things progress and move forward, it's exciting. I feel very good about being here in Minneapolis. We've got a psychedelic task force that Governor Walz has put together, and
Wow.
they're conducting research. And there we are have not been decriminalized. That happens at the state level, but Minneapolis psychedelics were made the lowest priority of any offense here in Minneapolis. And I think just a testament to people are curious and wanting to explore and wanting to feel safe. So anytime we're talking and sharing about stories and offering things, it's real great. And maybe I'll have a referral for you or a few. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
I don't know. I think we did. I
Yeah.
mean, I think there is a huge piece of this that is can work really well with someone who is looking to heal any sort of chronic illness, pain, autoimmune disease. There's a potential connection there.
Oh, when I was first talking to you, didn't you have a statistic about women and autoimmune disease? Is it what is or
In the States, I believe it's, um, yeah, I want to say 35 million women.
okay.
I gotta, don't quote me on that stat exactly, are living with Hashimoto's
Oh,
autoimmune disease.
that's what
It's the number one. Yeah.
um what's so interesting and probably too much information, but I'm going to share anyway. Since I've been on my healing journey, my thyroid medication, every time I go in, it's like, we got to cut it back. We got to cut it back. We got to cut it back. I feel I have been, when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, I felt terrible. I was sweating. My hair was falling out. It's nothing like that, but I know that my I've been having to go back in to get retested, and each time it's like, we got to lower that. And I have been wondering, has medicine or microdosing been affecting that? So it's food for thought for me. But such an interesting, it's a disease, right? Hashimoto's
It's an
or
autoimmune disease.
yeah.
Mhm.
Um, it happened shortly after I gave birth. My I guess my thyroid went out of whack. And here I am 13 years later. You know, it's funny how I need to learn more about
Yeah, but for
about it.
another episode, we'll talk
Yes,
about Hashimoto's.
probably. Yeah. Well, my
Yeah,
mom has it too. So,
me
now
too,
I'm
yeah.
worried about my daughter. Well, thank you, Kris. I will be in touch, and I appreciate having you so much. It's been
Thank you so
wonderful.
much.
I love this so much.
Thank you, Maggie. It was a pleasure.
All right, I'll talk to you soon, hon. Thank
Okay,
you. Have a good one.
thank you.
All right, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a good day. For more information, please visit mindsonmushrooms.com. Thank you for joining the journey.